to help on the rotation.
Back to a one-point game, and there's West with the steal. West maintains the dribble. West with a slam dunk, Delonte West.
He was once a rising star in the NBA. Now he's a man holding a cardboard sign on a Dallas street corner, and the league prays you don't recognize his face. Delonte West, point guard, fighter, a man who went from nationally televised games to begging for change in broad daylight. But don't let the headlines fool you. This wasn't a fall from grace. It was a slow, brutal descent. And the most painful part, it wasn't random. It was allowed to happen. Or worse, orchestrated. You've seen the viral clips, the mugshots. Maybe you even laughed. A lot of people did. But none of that told the real story. None of that explained how a man this talented, this hardworking, this deeply broken, could be seen suffering for years, while the billion-dollar machine that once profited from him just stood by, watching. This isn't just a tragedy, it's a cover-up. Because what happened to Delonte West wasn't just about bad decisions or mental illness. It was about a league that knew. A league that saw every red flag from the beginning, the trauma, the diagnosis, the desperation, and still said, he'll do. They wanted the talent. They ignored the pain. And when that pain became inconvenient, they turned off the cameras and shut the door. Now, insiders are finally talking. Former teammates, staff, people who saw what the NBA once buried. The conversations that never made the media. The choices that doomed him. The silence that killed his reputation and nearly killed him, too. This isn't a redemption story. This is a reckoning. If you think you know Delonte West's story, you don't. And if you think the NBA is innocent in what happened to him, you're not ready for what's next. Subscribe now, because the truth they've spent years burying, you're about to hear it, raw, real, and unfiltered. Before the NBA lights, before the contracts, before the scandal, Delonte West was just a boy trying to survive. Born into poverty in Washington, D.C., he didn't grow up dreaming of fame. He grew up dreaming of safety. He once called his childhood happy poor, a phrase that makes you smile until you understand what he meant. Bouncing between broken homes, sleeping on couches, carrying more pain than any child should be asked to hold. By the time he was 12, Delonte was already in a full-blown battle with depression. At 14, he tried to end his life with pills and a blade. And no one in the system, no coach, no counselor, no adult caught it. But basketball was different. It didn't ask him what he'd been through. It didn't need explanations. It just let him breathe. At Eleanor Roosevelt High School, he turned pain into performance, playing every game like it was his last. Coaches praised his fire, but behind closed doors, they whispered about his volatility. The NBA would later call him unpredictable. But back then, he was just surviving the only way he knew how, and they loved it as long as it got them wins. Then came St. Joseph's, and with it national attention. He paired up with Jameer Nelson, and became one of the most electrifying duos in college basketball. But even then, even with cameras and crowds, his eyes never smiled all the way. He carried that same quiet sadness, like a man already worn thin. Reporters called him intense. Teammates called him private. But no one stopped to ask, why does he look like he's always one bad day away from breaking? And the truth is, they didn't want to ask. Because back then, and still today, the league doesn't want to understand boys like Delonte West. Not when there's money on the line. In 2004, the Boston Celtics made their move. They knew the story. They'd read the psychiatric reports. They were aware of the bipolar diagnosis. And yes, they'd even heard about the suicide attempt. But none of it scared them off. Because Delonte West could hoop. And in this league, talent isn't just forgiven, it's exploited. He was selected 24th overall, not because he was ready, but because he was marketable. A gritty underdog story with just enough edge to sell jerseys, but not enough protection to survive the machine. From day one, the NBA cashed in on his pain. Delonte came in and played like a man possessed. Fearless on defense. Unselfish on offense. The fans loved his hustle. That blue-collar, no-complaints energy. What they didn't see was the unraveling that began behind the scenes. The sleepless nights. The mood swings. The paranoia. The isolation. You'd think the league would have had systems in place, therapy, regular check-ins, mental health advocates. But back then, none of that existed. If you were struggling, you were labeled a distraction. If you needed help, you were seen as weak. And as Delonte's grip on stability started to slip, the league tightened the screws. They suspended him. They fined him. They treated him like a malfunctioning product, not a human being. His teammates didn't know what to do. The front office didn't care. And the fans, they only saw what the cameras allowed them to see. He was cracking under the weight of everything the league refused to acknowledge. And still, he showed up to play. Still, he gave them everything. But here's the truth the NBA doesn't want told. They knew he was broken, and they drafted him anyway. Because in their eyes, his damage wasn't a red flag. It was an asset, a calculated risk in a billion-dollar business that rewards silence over support. This is where it all turned. You might have heard the rumor, the one that spread like wildfire across locker rooms and message boards. Delonte West slept with LeBron James' mother.
Hey, you sleeping with LeBron's mom? No.
A bombshell. No proof. No context. Just whispers, venomous and unchecked. But in a league obsessed with image, whispers can be louder than truth. And once that rumor dropped, Delonte's career didn't just stumble, it imploded. Let's be clear, this wasn't some silly locker room joke. This was sabotage. The Cavaliers' locker room went cold overnight. Players stopped talking. Coaches stopped calling plays his way. The front office, dead silent. And LeBron, the one man who could have shut it all down, never said a word. No denial. No defense. Nothing. For someone already battling bipolar disorder, that kind of abandonment isn't just painful, it's lethal. The psychological weight of that moment was the beginning of Delonte's real breakdown. And the NBA? They stood by and watched it happen. They didn't run damage control. They didn't issue a statement. They didn't investigate. They let a man's name become a meme, a punchline. It was easier to let him burn than to risk protecting someone the league had already decided wasn't marketable anymore. Delonte wasn't just betrayed by teammates, he was abandoned by the entire NBA machine. A machine that cashed in on his trauma when it was convenient and disappeared when it got messy. This wasn't a scandal, it was a setup. And from this point on, Delonte West was no longer seen as a player. He was a headline, a risk, a man with a stigma so radioactive, no team wanted him near their brand. That rumor, a single and proven accusation, did what years of injuries and off-court struggles never could. It erased him from a league. You remember the headline, right? Delonte West caught with 3 loaded guns while riding a Can-Am Spider. That's how they spun it, like he was some thug on a GTA mission. But no one stopped to ask why. Why would an NBA player, a father, a man struggling with mental illness, be riding through the streets with a shotgun in a guitar case? The truth? He was terrified. And no one, not the league, not the teams, not the media, wanted to hear the real story. Delonte wasn't trying to hurt anyone. He was trying to survive. He told ESPN later that he believed people were following him, that his life was in danger, that someone was out to get him. Paranoia? Sure, but not fiction. That's what bipolar psychosis can do. And after what happened in Cleveland, after the humiliation, the silence, the whispers, can you really blame him for feeling hunted? His reality was warped, but his fear was real. And still, nobody came to help. What did the NBA do? They threw the book at him. 10-game suspension. No therapy. No support. Just a quiet punishment and a PR strategy to sweep it all away. And the media? They framed it like a crime story, not a mental health crisis. They used words like fall from grace, meltdown, dangerous. But never sick. Never abandoned. Never in need. The narrative was already set, and Delonte was left to unravel with the world watching and nobody listening. This wasn't just a breakdown, this was a cry for help. And the NBA muted it, turned down the volume, pretended it didn't exist. A billion-dollar league with endless resources and no room for a player unraveling in real time. If this had been one of their golden boys, the spin would have been different. But for Delonte West, there was no PR shield, just a spotlight and silence. Let's be real, the NBA knew he was slipping. Delonte wasn't hiding it. The man was unraveling in full view. He'd go from laughing on the bench to staring into nothing. He was missing team flights, getting fined, spacing out in interviews. It wasn't attitude, it was illness. But instead of pulling him aside, instead of wrapping an arm around him and saying, "Let's get you help," the league hit him with fines, suspensions, and whispers. Like he was just another problem to sweep away. And that's exactly what they did. They erased him. After Cleveland, his name barely came up. Teams didn't want to touch him. Not because he couldn't play, but because he came with baggage. Mental illness became a scarlet letter in a league obsessed with image. There were no press conferences, no outreach, no league statements saying, "We stand by our players in crisis." Just silence. He went from playoff rotations to bouncing around practice squads. Then nothing. He disappeared and nobody asked why. No reporters hunted for the truth. No teammates spoke up. The league didn't offer therapy, they offered exile. Because when you're not a star, your pain isn't profitable. It's expendable. And that's what Delonte became. A cautionary tale. A forgotten name. And to the NBA, that was good business. No controversy. No accountability. Just another broken man, left behind by a machine that never looked back. But we're looking back now, and what we're seeing is ugly. Because when a billion-dollar industry decides a man's pain is inconvenient, they don't fix it. They bury it. And that's exactly what they did with Delonte West. You know what people never talk about? How hard Delonte West actually tried to fix it. Like really tried. Not just some court-mandated rehab or PR stunt. I mean soul-searching, ground zero kind of fight. After the streets, after the guns, after the mugshots, he still had enough strength left to claw for a comeback. And if you were watching closely, not the memes, not the jokes, you could see it. You could see the man fighting the monster in the mirror, hoping someone would see him too. Mark Cuban stepped in, remember? Flew him to rehab, paid for treatment, tried to give him another shot. And for a moment, just a moment, it looked like the comeback was on. He got clean. He smiled again. Videos surfaced of him working at a rehab center, helping others fight their own demons. That was the real Delonte, the one the league never promoted. But here's the thing, he wasn't just battling addiction or illness. He was battling a machine that had already decided his story was over. And no matter how much progress he made, the NBA never opened a single door back. Because for the league, redemption isn't profitable unless they script it. Unless it ends with a tidy ESPN feature and a jersey retirement. But Delonte's story was messy. It made executives uncomfortable. It reminded fans that the NBA's mental health initiatives didn't exist when it really counted. So even when Delonte really tried to pull himself out of a hole, the league acted like he was already dead. Like the effort didn't matter. But it did matter. It still does. One of the last times Delonte opened up in public, really opened up, he didn't talk about the NBA or money or even his past. He talked about his son. And if you listen to the way he said it, it'll break you.
I named my son Cash after Cassius Clay and Johnny Cash, and his middle name was Delonte, but I didn't want to name him Delonte West Jr. just because of that. I don't want my son going to school and people making fun of him for something his daddy did. And he go to school, oh, didn't your daddy have sex with LeBron?
That wasn't just a dream. That was Delonte trying to rewrite history. Not for himself, but for his boy. He didn't even want the kid to bear his last name. Said the name, West, had too much baggage, too much pain. That's how deep the scars were. Imagine that, loving your son so much you'd rather him not carry your name, just to protect him from your past. That's not failure. That's fatherhood at its rawest. And all he ever wanted was for his boy to be proud of him, not afraid to mention him. But in a world that chewed him up and spit him out, how do you rebuild a legacy from nothing? And still, even in the chaos, he showed up to games with his kid. Smiling, joking, being the dad he never had. You'd see it in little moments. Him holding his son's hand, adjusting the kid's collar, trying to keep it all together. That was Delonte's real comeback. Not the league, not the headlines. His son. The proof that he still had something worth fighting for, even if the world had already thrown him away. The NBA won't release a statement on Delonte West. They won't answer questions. They won't acknowledge the silence that helped ruin him. Because if they speak, they admit the truth, that they watched one of their own unravel and chose profit over protection. They ran mental health PSAs after he fell. They posted hashtags and feel-good campaigns while the man who needed them most stood at an intersection begging. But this story, it's not just about Delonte. It's about all the players who carry pain in silence. The rookies who smile for the cameras while fighting demons nobody sees. It's about a system that markets strength but punishes vulnerability. And if we don't talk about it, really talk about it, the next Delonte West is already out there, dying quietly behind the scenes. Maybe not today, but soon. So yeah, maybe this isn't the NBA story you expected. but it's the one you need to hear. Because behind the lights and sneakers and Supermax contracts, there's still a man out there who gave everything to a game and got left behind. And if that doesn't make you question the league, then maybe you're not ready for the truth. But if you are, then share this, talk about this, and remember this. Silence didn't just hurt Delonte West. It destroyed him.